Our mission is to heal and help others as we heal and help ourselves through purpose-driven conversations.
Yep.
So today we have a special guest here with us, a special podcast here with us today.
We do.
Just a Dope Ass Podcast.
They are here.
They are here.
Yes, we
I
are.
love the shades that you put on.
Right.
They stay on. They stay
Okay.
on.
That's DC. Say hi, DC.
Hi, DC.
And Chad will be joining us in a second.
Yes.
So we're going to learn more about these young men and what they do. But before we get into that, we're going to start like we always do with a toast. The toast is really just an acknowledgement or a shout out to a person, place, or thing. So I'm going to start with you, Chanel. Who are you giving your toast to?
I'm going to give my toast to just my friends, my sister friends, in the spirit of Girlfriends being on Netflix. Whoop, whoop. Just to my sister friends. I love y'all for real. Like, you guys are amazing. And I'm glad that I'm in the circle that I'm in, because it could be worse, child. People out here searching for friends, and I don't understand. So I'm very blessed. So I love y'all. So that's who I'm giving my toast to, all my sister friends.
Awesome. So DC, who are you giving your toast to?
Gee. Let me think. That's a tough one. I'll say I want to give my toast to anybody Black that's within services. Anybody that's not, I don't want to say just Black people, but kind of just Black people, just a little bit more. But people of color that are out providing services to other people and helping other people better themselves and stay afloat and just keep themselves, in a positive space. So everybody that's got a little melanin in their skin and you out there servicing the community, my toast goes to you.
That's what's
Shout
up.
out to them.
The clink of the glass. There we go. I like that. That was a great toast.
Yeah.
What about you, Bestie? Who you giving your toast to?
Mine is going to go to Lakita. So she had an online conference on Saturday called the Why Not Me Conference. 3 different sessions. I led the finance section. It was an amazing conference. People laughed, cried, felt like they got better. There was some healing that took place. Mm-hmm. So, you shouted out sister friends. Lakita always calls me her little sister. So shouts out to her.
Awesome. Yes. And the finance portion is what I was a part of. I had a lot going on Saturday, but it was amazing. Like, that was right on time. Like, I was definitely in that mindset to hear everything that was shared and receive it. So thank you, Lakita. That was amazing. Yes.
And we're going to declare publicly that because of that session, when we go to Cancun, not Cancun. Did we say Cancun?
To Vegas and Cancun.
We said we ain't buying nothing new. I don't know about Cancun though. That might be hard.
Listen, so let's take baby steps. There we go.
The Vegas trip, the Vegas and Colorado and wherever else we're going.
Yeah.
We're not in LA. We're not buying anything new.
Nope.
Because we already have everything we need.
We do. Exactly.
We got everything we need.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. No liquor, no drink, no nothing.
We're talking about to pack. So typically we go shopping before we go.
And we ain't buying that either. Hopefully somebody else will buy all of those things. We go to a club,
We need a sponsor.
Somebody else gonna spend their money.
We need a sponsor, DC. Moving on. So now we are going to break bread. We have to check in, see how we doing. So we're going to start with you, Bestie. Chanel, how are you doing? Let's break bread.
I am okay. I feel like I'm been doing a lot, as you all know. Maybe DC doesn't know, but I'm an educator. And it's been different working at school with no physical children. But doing everything virtually. So every day I'm kind of like helping parents and trying to motivate our scholars to just be just as studious as they would be if they were at school, which is a little difficult working with the student body that I work with. They're all under 8 years old. So it's difficult to get them to like focus and do what they need to do on the computer. It's not that they can't do it. It's just keeping them motivated. So I've been trying to find ways to keep them motivated. I do shout outs every Friday. I've been doing like raffles and drawings and popping up at their homes, just so they can know, like, I got your back. Like, let's get through this. So, keep social distancing, keep wearing your mask so we can get back in the building as soon as possible and I can love on them in person.
Absolutely.
So that's what's going on.
DC, what's going on with you? Besides being bliggity black today, because you showed up in your all black with your dreads, with your Africa chain on and your Africa
black.
Shirt.
I'm black.
So other than being black, like what's going on?
What's going on with me is, of course, as you addressed my blackness, black is my favorite color. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm in a positive space. I'm definitely somebody where I try to keep my internal clock set at an even keel, straight 12 to 6 at all times, just paying attention to everything that's going on. I like to be at peace, and I keep it that way. I feel like I'm the only person that's in control of what I got going on. So I try to make sure that whatever I'm responding to, that I'm responding to it positively. Right now, I'm just mostly studying for my licensing test. So that's where a lot of my focus is going, aside from the usual work routine and things like that. But that's the next goal that I'm trying to, mark off my checklist. So that's where my focus is going, and I feel positive about it. I still got time to study, so I'm keeping my chakras alive.
There you go. Well, spirit fingers and prayers and all that good vibes and everything.
Namaste.
Yes, namaste.
Yes.
What's going
So
on?
for me, I am. It's a whole lot going on. It's more going on than I would like to be going on right now. But one of the things that I was talking to a good friend about was, you can only control what you can control. So, like DC said, that's the only thing you can control. So you can't control people. You can only control how you deal with them, right? You can't control situations. You can only control how you respond. So I'm just figuring out how my new method of operating needs to be.
Yeah. Okay.
And just focus on me.
There we go. Listen, and a quick shout out to your sweatshirt. I see you rocking your TGN sweatshirt in all black. Okay. Love it.
Yeah, shouts out to the good news and this lovely sweatshirt.
Yes. All right.
He gave it to you? Do I gotta email some people?
I purchased it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
No, it was when somebody flew out here, they brought it to me.
Right.
Oh.
The
I
man
thought-
with the master plan flew out to Milwaukee and, he brought us some stuff.
Just making sure. I thought I was have to ask some questions around here. I was about
There
to
we
say
go. Oh, look, we have a guest.
We have Chad Awesome. We are checking
I slid in.
We need to know, how are you doing?
Yes.
We're breaking bread.
Oh, I'm good now. I'm home.
I just want everybody to know that we witnessed Chad on his way home. He stopped, robbed something real quick. We don't know
Yeah.
who it was, what it was. He was all masked up. Then next thing you know, he just popped in like did nothing happen.
Yeah.
It's tough out here, man. You gotta do what you need to do, man. I just feel like, I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I am. Most
Call it whatever you
entrepreneurial skills.
Hey, there you go. And we don't know nothing, so that's perfect for me. Hey.
Exactly.
Although it's caught on video, but whatever.
I was in the car and I was out the car and then I was back in the car. That's it.
There we go.
Okay. So is everything going well, Chad? How are you doing?
Good. Wow, I feel like, I'm good. I'm happy. Feel really good. I was listening to y'all. I was covering a lot of ground, man. But yeah, no, I'm good. I'm feeling good.
I know,
I'm
right?
actually,
Okay.
I'm excited, man. I'm happy to talk to y'all. I appreciate you guys being patient with me and like having to get home and stuff. Didn't want to be late, but late.
No.
But yeah, feel good.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
You're here
you
now.
guys because I was a little trifling when I first tried to book y'all. But thank you all for being flexible and making your way to Brunch with Besties podcast.
Yeah, I feel like Chad was really just trying to get back at us. So
Oh,
it's
for
cool,
real?
Chad. Whatever.
Oh, no.
We're
Like, I
even
don't know,
now,
man.
okay?
Flexibility is a staple around here, man. We don't got nothing in control.
There we go. Whew.
I just be doing stuff.
Awesome.
Okay, so now it is time for the tip.
All right.
This episode is brought to you by Audible. Read along with us for free using our free 30-day Audible trial. www.audibletrial.com/BWB. BWB is in Brunch with Besties. Right now, we are reading The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration and the Age of Colorblindness by Michelle Alexander. Again, read along with us for free for 30 days. www.audibletrial.com/BWB. BWB is in Brunch with Besties. The link is always in our show notes. It's also on our Instagram at BrunchWithBestiespodcast. Please click the link in our bio.
All right.
And we're back.
We're back.
Professionalism unmatched. Jesus.
Well, we are the Oprahs of the Good News Network.
We are. I
I
mean,
see.
we're operating out of the Milwaukee studio.
Oh.
I mean, we have to
Yes.
come correct.
I see. Well, who's Oprah and who's gay?
We're both Oprah.
I was gonna say, look
Oh.
now, don't start no beef.
It's two Oprahs.
I'm just asking the question.
Listen,
Who's
I'm
Yeah.
Oprah and who's Gail? What kind of question is that?
right. Listen, it's two Oprahs here. Okay.
Like y'all
There
got
is no
double,
Gail.
There's
No
double
Gales.
Oprah energy. I gotta be on my best behavior. Double Oprah energy is wild.
There
Yes,
we
so
go.
I
We
hope
do.
you have your tissue because we're probably gonna cry. It's the
Right.
whole thing.
You never know.
That actually did happen on the last one. Who was we recording with?
With Will.
Oh yeah, with
I
Chill
didn't
Will.
know how we got
I
there,
know.
but we got there. So
He's a therapist too. So he
Yeah.
said something and we just broke down. I don't know what happened. Anything could happen. Okay.
Hey,
So
yeah,
we're here.
no,
So we want to start with, we need you guys to give us some background on Just a Dope Ass Podcast. How did it start? How did you guys form your team? Where did it all begin?
Mm-hmm.
I think like we've been doing this. Just a Dope Ass Podcast has been a thing for, I want to say this might be, at least for me, it's like year 3, maybe 4, at least year 3. And at first it was me and a friend of mine from school, and we did it for a good amount of time. I think we're up to like 80 episodes, and we had a difference of opinion. And me and DC used to work together. Like me and DC have been friends since like 2013, 2014, something like that. And me and him used to always, like, even after work, we would always like chill together and just have long conversations for like 2 hours. So we were like, okay, we want to start a podcast. So I was like, okay, I got like 2 or 3 podcasts I want to start. And DC was always like coming through when we had started Just a Dope Ass Podcast in the first place. And then after we had the difference of opinion, I was just like, well, me and DC was gonna start with our own, but nigga, why don't you just jump on the team? And then we just kind of been rolling ever since.
Oh well. So you're a therapist too, or y'all work somewhere else?
We worked in, it was same thing with kids, and it was behavior modification, all that stuff. DC's finished. I'm still in school.
Oh wow, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you're studying to be a therapist?
Mm-hmm.
Look at
That's awesome.
this.
So we're
All these black
definitely-
men.
I know, right? Like, wow. Shouts out to the people in the chat. I see Scarlett has joined, and Keith said, ha ha ha, who's Gail?
I cannot stand him.
See, he wants to know too.
No.
There's no Gales here.
There's no Gales over here. Only Oprah.
Only Oprahs. That's it.
I like it. What's wrong with Gail?
Ain't nothing wrong with
Right,
Gail.
she's cool, but this ain't that. It's only Oprahs.
You can find Gail on another podcast.
Right.
Perhaps.
I don't know.
It's just not this one.
It's not here. Okay. There's that.
So then what was the thought? Like, what were you guys trying to achieve with Just a Dope Ass Podcast? Like, what was your mission, or what did you think was missing from the conversation that you wanted to add to the podcast network?
It would just be like, our own personal private conversations, and we would just always sit like, at least actually for both parties, actually, we would be sitting there chilling, and we get to talking, and talking about hip hop would turn to talking about mental health would turn to talking about religion would turn into talking about our own personal interactions. And at the end of it, we would always go, hey man, this shit was pretty fire, like we should have probably recorded that. And then we did that, and then I don't know, that's kind of how it started. After that, it was like, okay, well, we started. All right, I'll fix it a little bit. Give me like 2 seconds. Stay right here. But yeah, we did that, and then
Wait a minute. Are you having a dad moment?
Hey, you got a kid?
My lady has a kid.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're having a bonus dad moment.
know,
Well, that was cute.
Hey,
You
friend.
just go.
That's what's up.
Oh, never mind. Mom showed up.
Hi, Mom.
But no.
Hey, girl. Hey.
But no, we yeah, that was pretty much it. Like we would just have really dope conversations, and then after that, we were just like, I started looking up. I'm looking at the Joe Budden podcast. I'm looking at all the other podcasts, and I'm like, all right, this doesn't look terribly hard. So I, at the beginning, it was my previous host was EJ. He was like my bro from school. Initially, we had like the little, little plug you just plug into the laptop. And once we did a little bit of research, I was like, oh, I'm gonna just go get a little mix board. And then we just kept going. And after we got consistent with it, after that, just kind of got the bug like, It's rain, sleet, snow, sick. We're gonna just keep recording and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. It's not really. It's a pretty easy story. We just gonna keep doing this.
Right.
Okay.
Especially with me and TJ coming together to officially be the host of Just the Dope Ass podcast now. I know for me and him have discussed it before, like we want to make sure that we let people know, because we are in the space of mental health, that we let people know like how much it correlates with everything that we have going on in our life. Like a lot of the things that we come in contact with, like you said, from music, the type of music that you choose to listen to may be dictated by the mood that you're in. It may be dictated by the experiences that you've had in your life. Like every choice that we make in our life is somehow connected to our mental health status or our outlook on things. And we want people, especially people within the Black community, to realize like how much we should be having this conversation. It doesn't have to be a thing for us to talk about therapy or mental health. Like it should be a casual conversation, because essentially that's what it is if you honestly pay attention to what's deeper than just, the surface level of everything. So we're in an asshole, sarcastic way, taking a little bit of everything, kind of creating a little mulligan stew and connecting it back to mental health, just to let people know like it's okay to talk about these things.
I'm
In an
curious
honest way.
in an honest way.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what drives you both to be so passionate about mental health. Like, have you dealt with a mental health crisis of some sort, or have you had to go through anything involving your mental health that made you say, you know what, we need to focus on this?
Yes.
Who going-
Thing called
who going
dating,
first?
and like these people call women, oh my God. Mental
Tell,
health
tell us
crisis.
about them. Tell us about
Girl,
them.
let's
You,
get some perspective. We
this
like
is
this.
tea time.
Yes.
This is tea time. So tell us
Tea
about
time.
them.
Give us some
Uh,
perspective.
And take your shades off. You can cry here. Take your
Um,
shades off. You can
Safe
cry
space.
here.
I'm dying inside. It's just so difficult. To be honest, I challenge anybody to go through their life and see how they haven't gone through a mental health crisis. So
Absolutely.
it's not a matter of have we, it's a matter of do we recognize that we have and how do we respond to it. I've gone through multiple. Now, have I been hospitalized? No, it's never been that severe. Have I been in a severe depression to where I didn't leave my house for weeks and months? Not necessarily, but something along those lines. But throughout our transition of life and our journey of life, you're gonna go through situations where you got to do a mental health check of some sort to get your stuff from one situation to the next level of whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So I know that I can give multiple examples, but just to kind of preface things, we have all, whether people know it or not, we've all been through some sort of a mental health crisis. Just like I said, I mean, jokingly, but even within dating, that's some sort of a mental health discourse. When you come across that crazy person that you dated or a bad breakup or whatever it is, that is something that is affecting your mental, emotional, and sometimes, unfortunately, physical health as well. So, it's just a matter of addressing it.
Mm.
Would you like to share something that you
Right.
went through?
He
So-
can.
Wait, are you single or are you dating? So, Chad Awesome, you have a lady. DC, what about you?
I am happily single.
Okay. Word
I
up.
drink water and mind
Are
my
you
business.
sure about that? Because I feel like there was some hesitation, and you know how they say, like, when somebody say they single, you have to be like, "But is somebody else dating you?"
Are you single? You got to say it twice.
Are you single?
No,
Very
so
happy about
here's
that.
why I hesitated. I hesitated because everybody's definition of dating and single is different.
Mhm.
I don't know what your definition is. I know what my definition is. So I can say that I'm single because everybody understands that. Is there a specific person that I'm dealing with on a regular basis? No. Is it even an interest of mine at the moment? No, not really. Am I open to dating, as in spending time with somebody else and getting to know them and having social interaction? Yes, but even that has a spectrum of fluidity depending on the person that it's with. So I like I said earlier off air, I'm somebody that I don't look at the surface of things. I always analyze to a deeper level. So I make sure that I understand what people are hinting at or implying when they ask me, am I single or am I dating? Because some people think dating is we go together, we just not official. You got to clear. You got to have some effective communication to draw those boundaries properly. So to clarify, yes, I am single. I deals with me. I minds my business.
So you single.
There you
Is
go.
what we heard.
You drinking your water and you
No.
minding your business.
And minding his
Okay.
business and being bliggity black
There
with all
we go.
his black paraphernalia on. Let me
Sip
see that
tea.
mug. Say
Right,
something.
what does it say? I like the pinky. Anything is possible. Okay.
Okay, I thought it said something like I'm super black or something. I don't know. Or like give us free.
That was in the cabinet. I didn't have time to pull that one out yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So then can you share something that you went through that affected your mental health? So obviously to preface this, right? So most of our listeners are women. We do have some men, shouts out to them. But it's good for us women to get some perspective directly from men, because obviously Chanel and I can sit and talk about what we think men think or what we think they go through and how we think they go through. But it's always great to hear it firsthand from the source.
I'll say this. Do you have a particular category? Whatever category you're thinking of, I got a story. So whatever category you would like me to
Well, you just brought up relationships
Yeah.
and talked about women. So go ahead, talk about them some more.
There we go. Heartbreak.
I won't say I've dealt with any large heartbreak as far as relationships are concerned. I've dealt with a lot of disappointment. A lot of the disappointment within relationships comes from, in my opinion, it comes from expectation. I'm somebody that within dating now, I don't have expectations. I know that sounds extremely weird for a lot of people because people are like, oh, you don't have an expectation for X amount of reason. I don't have expectation because within dating, you're learning somebody new. So in my personal philosophy, it's kind of unfair and irrational for me to have an expectation of something that I do not understand. And that's just me learning from my previous experiences of having an expectation that this is going to turn out a certain way and it doesn't. Or having the expectation that I'm giving this type of energy or this type of effort, so it's going to be reciprocated, and it doesn't. Me trying to give a certain amount of freedom within the dating space because we are both single individuals. We're just trying to get to know each other better. And I end up being looked at a certain way because I'm not understanding or communicating their expectation and why they have that expectation. So within relationships, nothing specific that I feel like divulging here on the show at this moment. But I have had a lot of situations where communication and expectation has caused me to deal with a lot of disappointment, and then I have to do the internal battle of not being jaded because of it. Because I grew up the stereotypical nice guy. I was the afterthought, chunky, dark-skinned dude, didn't have the flyest of everything. I was just a football player, tough, kept my nose to the grinder, focused on what I need to do and accomplish my goals. But I went extremely under the radar. I was extremely popular because of what I did, but I didn't have any personal connections with people in general. So it led me to kind of be dismissed a lot. That's even going into a different type of relationship as far as friends are concerned. But having that type of background kind of humbled me in a lot of different areas to where I've become a collegiate athlete and a pro athlete in different areas. It's reminding me like, hey, any of this can be taken away. Any of this can be looked at or perceived differently. People are going to approach you differently because of this, and you have to keep your intention genuine. Remain that same nice guy that you've always been. It may not have paid off for you in the past, but it will pay off for you in the future. So I have the internal battle of keeping my jadedness at bay to make sure that I keep my integrity intact as the nice single dude.
Okay.
How
No.
do you balance being, wanting to not feel like you're being dismissed or people are just kind of taking you for granted, but then still wanting to genuinely just be a nice guy, right? So, or was your answer, I don't have expectations?
Part of that is not having expectation. Like I said, like on our show, on Just a Dope Ass Podcast, we talk a lot about accountability. One of our mottos on the show is it's your fucking fault. You make your own decisions. You react to the things that you encounter in your own life. So I can't say that I don't put expectations in a relationship because of other people. I don't put expectations in my situations because that's me creating something that's going to let me down. I have to be rational and approach the situation in a way to where I'm trying to understand as opposed to trying to force things to go to a particular goal that's suited for me. A relationship of any kind, a friendly relationship, a business relationship, a romantic relationship, all of them are the meeting of two minds together. So if I'm approaching it with a selfish expectation, trying to force something that's good for me, I'm dooming it to fail because I'm not being inclusive of the other person or parties or situation as it is, as a whole. So part of that is me releasing my expectation and just seeking to understand. Let me figure out what's going on and why. Let me not take things personally. I'm a little bit more of a stoic person. I'm not super emotional. So I know how to analyze something for what it is and take in that information as opposed to just being reactive to something just because it makes me feel a certain. And I think a lot of men in general, we get labeled with the whole male ego thing because we're not supposed to have emotions and we're not supposed to have feelings, which isn't true, which may cause other people to not ask us our feelings or talk to us about our feelings. So I've naturally figured out how to be stoic to get rid of the emotional component. Let me focus on being solution oriented, which is going to include everybody involved.
Oh, that's great perspective. So as you were talking, it made me think, so Chad, also definitely want to get your perspective as well. So what in your life, has caused you any to reevaluate your mental health?
Relationships have done that. He kind of ran the gamut of the relationship side, and me and him agree a lot. Like we're almost uncomfortably similar. So I kind of definitely agree with his perspective on relationships, like tenfold. One thing for me that made me, I think, jump further into like mental health was me and my parents are divorced. So like I think most divorced kids, you go through like your anger moments or whatever moments. And for me, I wasn't much of like not like a crying person, but like I was like mad a lot. Like I spent like maybe like my first couple of years of even being in school, if it was like some shit's getting started, I was like, ooh, where? It's got nothing to do with me. Like, but I wanna be in that. And after a while, it just became like problematic. Like, why am I always trying to like break some shit? Why am I always trying to fight some shit? And I think I took like I took like my first psych course, and I was like, oh, this shit is dope. And then the more I was doing the courses, doing the classes, I started to kind of think about it towards myself, and that's really what like was like I was through after that. I was like, oh, this is the field I should probably like do some stuff in. But after that, I started like, I would go listen to some YouTube stuff or kind of like do some research on people who was big in it. And that's what kind of made me go, oh, okay, this might stem from this. This might stem from my mom. This might stem from my dad. But that situation is what kind of put me in like, oh, this is a form of trauma. Like, it's not like, I did like every other Black person did. It's therapy, ain't nobody beating or touching you. I was like, I didn't have any of that. But this specific situation was traumatic, and it was traumatic not just for me. It was traumatic for my dad. It was traumatic for my mom. It was traumatic for everybody involved. And that was just something that, okay, cool. Like, this is how trauma works, and I need to like realize how this actually did affect me instead of going, I'm cool. Like, it didn't bother me. I'm cool. I'm straight. It's not really an issue. So that was kind of the one for me, or that whole thing, because that sparked a lot of things over like the course of like years. I'm like, okay, I need to address this, because if I address that this way, then I need to address these 5 or 6, 7, however many instances, and kind of work back. Okay, like, how did this affect you? How are you really like processing this, and so on and so forth.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is really interesting. So as you both were talking about your experiences, that kind of made me think about, why I chose the career that I chose and why Sherry Renee and I both do the podcast that we do. So it's like very much so similar in both of those aspects, because for me, being an educator, it was very much like, okay, after having my son, I was like, all right, like I understand like the mind, like I like watching kids grow. Like, then it made me think about like my own childhood. Like, okay, well, why do I learn the way I learn? And why do I do the things that I do? And even for our podcast, it's very much so like, people should hear these conversations we have. Like, I think people would get a lot out of it. And I feel like for the most part, they do. So we've been, 3 years strong, but those similarities are very much so the way we do what we do. So that's good perspective.
So then, what would you say is the goal of your podcast?
It kind of is progressing. Like that's one thing for me personally, and one thing me and him like bond on is that as we're growing in this, like the mission of it is growing as well. Because it started out as like, oh, we have fun, cool conversations, and I see people out here doing it, and it just looked like fun. And then the more we do it, if I hear like, it's not like, oh shit, 10,000 people listen to you yet, but I get like a friend of mine will listen, or I let my homegirl listen, or I let my wife listen, or so on and so forth. And I was like, oh shit, like my voice matters. So I need to now, if I have a thought that I feel like, might spark a conversation, like everybody uses that line, we're here to spark the conversation. But for real, like, oh, this is something we don't talk about. Mental health is something we don't talk about. So we both being passionate about that. That's a big thing. Like, okay, let's make sure that having a lane to have the difficult conversations is something that's normalized. A lot of it now has become like things that aren't normalized, whether it's how you view relationships, how you view religion, how you view whatever. It's kind of becoming a melting pot of come here so we can just, you don't have to agree, but you should, if you listen to us and you learn that, oh, I can have a conversation and not agree. It just kind of is becoming a space to provoke thought, I guess.
That is good. I guess I'm wondering about, and you kind of touched on it, Chad Awesome, that originally DC was not a part of Just a Dope Ass Podcast. So what was going on during that time where your previous co-host was just like, I'm done? And how did you all make that transition?
Me and DC we might not.
It's tea time for real.
It's tea time.
Okay.
It's me and DC, like we really are like real good friends. So we talk literally every day. Like if we don't talk every day, it'll be like 4 or 5, and we would just have like long ass, deep ass conversations. And like I said, when we had like conversations that I was like, oh, you should pull up. That transition wasn't really that difficult, because like as soon as like we kind of had our misunderstanding or like, separation, I was like, oh, hey man, what you doing? And then like the day he pulled up, because he's always like pretty much leaves himself available. And then when he pulled up, I just explained our situation to him. And I was like, if you want to, kind of be on permanently, I was like, we already talked about, doing this ourselves or doing a separate one. We could just do this. Like that for me and him, that wasn't like a super difficult transition. And then like as far as the previous situation, that was just kind of, it was just from my perspective, it was a misunderstanding, and then it just kept escalating. So it just was like, all right, I guess we just not doing it together no more.
DC, I sense that you want to say something.
Right. Is there more? There's more.
What is Chad not saying, DC?
I'm just listening.
Oh, wait. Oh, I'm not much of a not sayer. I mean, like the actual episode, it happened on air. Like the actual episode is up.
You guys can go and listen to it and see what happened if you really like.
Yeah,
I don't
like
know what episode it is, but you can hear it.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the it's somewhere in like the 80s or 90s.
So, well, give us the synopsis. What happened? And what
we were having a usual like debate back and forth on the episode about something. It was something really stupid. It was like the impact of artists and their responsibility to use their voice. It was talking about Future, and it was like toxic, what's not toxic, that type stuff. We just had two opposing sides, and it just started to get a little spicy. And I've kind of mentioned my demeanor. I'm a nice guy, but like, I'm also not really with the extra spice. So I just didn't, you see somebody getting spicy and you're like, this is probably your moment. Because I've thought about this is probably your moment where you should have stepped back. I don't really step back. It wasn't like disrespect, but it just was like, I'm gonna just keep standing because I don't agree with you. And like you getting spicy doesn't really, I'm not. So it kind of escalated there, and then it turned into a little bit of like, personal information was said, not on my end, but like it was about me, and I was like, oh, that's not cool. And then escalations kept getting hotter, and then there was a moment in the conversation where it was like, more or less, I'll leave the show, or like this won't move without me. And I was like, okay, well, door, or that door, and then walked out, and that was it. And after that, I was like, all right, I kind of finished that show by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Took a couple of days to kind of figure out, okay, man, am I going to do this solo? Am I going to whatever? And then called DC, and then that was that. As far as like, I think, did you say something like how it affected me, how I thought on my part, what I would have done on my part or whatever?
So a few things, because whoa.
You're right. On air, Jesus.
Yeah, on air, and I'm wondering if the impact of this is bigger because it was on air. Right, because how do you come back from that? You know what I mean? Especially if you're the one walking out, like, this ain't gonna be nothing without me. F you, whatever. I'm out. Right. And then next week, just kidding.
Right.
Where's my segment? I don't know. But I'm wondering a couple things. Number one, did you ever mend that relationship with that individual? Number two, where do you stand now? Number three, if you could go back and do it again, would you do anything differently? Number four, look, I got a whole list. Was this inevitable? Was it like, maybe were there signs that this just wasn't it, or that maybe there needed to be a separation, and maybe you kept fighting it, or they kept fighting it, and so then it happened. You know how they say, if you're with someone and you're not supposed to be with them, if you continue, situations will just keep presenting themselves until you finally get that this ain't it. So starting from the top.
All right, question one. What was question one?
Question one is, did you mend that relationship?
Yes.
We haven't, I would say, I guess, no, like we haven't had the conversation afterwards. We just haven't like spoken since. But I even said on air, like, I consider this person still like my brother. Like, you got family members who you might have on the outs with. So I've always said that, and I'll continue to say that, like, I don't have any loss of love. We just haven't had the conversation on how this worked and what the issue was. And I think it eventually will happen. It's just, we're just not there. Or I can't really speak if we're not there. I know for a while I wasn't there, and I'm open now. I figure like it'll happen when it's supposed to. So I would never say like that's the fucking end of life or whatever. But it just, we haven't mended it yet.
Okay. So then the second one was, if you could go back and do anything differently, would you?
I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't have poked the bear maybe in the way that I did. But I'm not a fan of not having confrontation. I feel like what you said earlier. I feel like there was maybe little things that probably could have got addressed that maybe was like, we'll let that slide because A, B, and C. We'll let that slide to keep the ship going. So I feel like we probably should have had maybe a smaller conflict happen, but I'm not necessarily opposed to us, because I'm not a person who's like, I'm like a Neanderthal in the sense of like, I remember being younger, I used to be like, we were the group of people who was like, all right, man, we arguing. After a while, the argument get too deep. Whoever wins the fight is the winner, and then we stay friends. So I'm not opposed to like conflict necessarily like dissolving a relationship, depending. So I guess I would have like maybe tried to say things maybe with a little less flippancy in my voice, but I kind of toe the line between, is this avoiding the conflict, or am I like being enabling of behavior that's going to continue to make it an issue? So I would have tried to maybe not bring it to a head where it's explosive, but I don't think I would have like avoided, I think we maybe need to have whatever this bumping heads we're having, we need to have that. So it's kind of a toss up.
Do you think that this person, not to make them a bad person or you a bad person, right? But do you think that it's possible that maybe it just wasn't a good fit anymore for the podcast, and that this is just the thing that allowed you guys to separate, but you were probably going to separate inevitably?
I've thought about that on both parts, because we're similar in a lot of ways, but there are a lot of things that just conversation wise, we have different interests. Like I like a lot of stuff. We used to really talk a lot about like hip hop and like pop culture shit and, you know, stuff that you could really make a lot of fun of. But also I get in there some days and I'd be like, let's talk about comics and like space. Did you see this new article from, you know, now this about, I don't know, quasars or some whatever shit. So there was conversations of us having our own separation stuff, because I wanted to do the geek thing. He liked to talk about like, he was really big into like culture and the vibe and brunch and shit like that. And like, I don't know, trendy shit. So it's kind of, we might have separated, I think. I don't think it shouldn't have happened necessarily this abruptly, but I think there definitely was a space where we were going to go, we had already always talked about, we were going to go off and do our own stuff after this was established to the level that it could be established on. But I do think there was a bit of, I really like doing the podcast radio stuff. Part of me thinks he was really good at like being like a business guy, and he's a good like showman and stuff like that. So I don't know if like he was really into podcasting in general. I like this stuff. So I just like, I'll sit and talk for 5 ever. So it might have been, it kind of like, I haven't really, I can't say yes or no 100% completely, but I do think that is a definite possibility that this at this point had run its course, and there might have been little ways we handled, like say, you know, conversations we talked about, or the show structure, or who runs the, you know, the social media pages and how our image is presented. Because even for me, we were very different even in that, like, y'all follow the page. Like, I'm really like hair trigger. If I find it funny in that moment, I'm gonna pull the trigger. If I think it's interesting, I'm gonna just post whatever, and y'all are just gonna get a good approximation of who we are, what we are. He was very much so like, we need to find the right, you know, precision thing. We need to take our time. So even that was like, just creatively, we were different. But I was always like, all right, man, creative differences. But that might have been something that, okay, we should probably have a better conversation about this, because we're starting to butt heads too much on how we want to approach this.
Did you change the name of the podcast?
No.
Okay, so you were just like, it's still just a dope ass podcast.
Right. It is what it is.
I was like, you know, if you want to, you know, but this is gonna stay this. I was here from day one. I was here. I put a lot on this. So
I'm glad we talked about this, because I was definitely thinking like, that wasn't the dude we met when we went to LA for the showcase. I'm like, that wasn't him. But, you know, I could have been wrong. Like, maybe he grew his hair. I don't know.
Right. I don't know. A lot of things could have happened.
But yeah.
And my memory just isn't good. So I'm like, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Who knows? Whatever. We'll talk about it on tea time.
Right.
But so then I'm wondering, DC, did you at all feel, so being that you weren't part of the original cast, so obviously you were connected with Chad, but did you ever feel a need to like fill his shoes, or like how was it coming on knowing that you're replacing someone?
Initially, it wasn't a matter of me trying to fill his shoes. It was more so like, all right, I'm going to be doing this on a more regular basis. I need to figure out how to put my best foot forward to make this thing continue to grow. Initially, it was cool because before, just like kind of how we have now, we have an open door policy, so people can show up and just participate in whatever conversation we were having at that moment. And because TJ is my boy, you know, if I have the opportunity to show up, I just show up and support. So I had to shift that mindset of me being somebody that can occasionally come in and support somebody and help them grow whatever it is that they believe in and nurture their own child until it becomes something great, to, oh, this is something for both of us now. And I have to figure out how to share this space and help grow this space for the both of us. Initially, because I'd never done the podcast thing as far as it being my own, there was some pressure of like, I don't want to mess this up, or I got to make sure that I sound right. I have to make sure for recording that I have to look right. You know, the little stuff that you worry about initially. Once I reminded myself like, yo, it's just like the conversations we used to have after work. Like, nothing has changed. We're just recording it. It kind of helped me relax a little bit, because like, say, I may be better when we're talking about specific serious topics, and I can divulge into that and provide a more whatever. Like, I know my talent is words. writing, speaking, things of that nature. That's always been my gift. TJ's gift is really being able to take something and like have quick bits about it. He can take information from anywhere and throw it into something that paints a picture in a joking way, or even just to kind of create some sort of amusement to it. And he can pull these sources from anywhere. I may not always be that quick. So initially it's like, oh, I have to be entertaining like TJ. And I was like, no, I don't. I'm not competing with him. This is my friend. Like, he has his component of what he's doing. I have my component of what we're doing. We both think a lot of similar ways. So sometimes he may say something exactly how I would say it, just faster than I do. Or I may say something that he agrees with, and I just kind of covered it to where he doesn't even have to say much because I'm saying exactly the same thing that we're both thinking. So it's like, this isn't a competition. This isn't a battle. This is us just being ourselves and supporting one another and growing something to its highest potential. So it's like, just be yourself. Just allow yourself to be yourself.
Allow yourself to be yourself. You always have great quotes. That's for sure.
I love that.
So one of the other things that I'm thinking of now, so DC, did you know the original host? And if so, was your relationship impacted or affected at all, being that you are now on the show and they're not?
Did I know the previous host? Yes. When they started the Just a Dope Ass podcast years ago, like I said, I would come randomly sometimes after work or whatever and pull up and just be a part of the show. Like I said, just to support. So I know him. I've had conversations with him. I've never had a personal relationship with him to where we hung out. But like I said, because I respect TJ and you're a part of something that he's doing, I respect you as well and I embrace you as well. I'm not really one to like, oh, nah, that's my homeboy. I don't really fuck with that dude over there. No, like, because on a personal level, I've spent a lot of time in my life by myself. And like I said earlier, I've been used to being the afterthought in a lot of situations to where I don't really care whose it is. If you're an attachment of somebody that I support, I embrace you. I know what it's like to grow up by myself and be alone and have to do things and figure things out by myself. So any opportunity I have with family or friends to kind of grow that and have some sort of connection, it doesn't take much. Like I embrace you. I'm going to have a little bit of a boundary with you, but I embrace you. So with him, it's like, I embrace you. I don't know much about you. I don't have to know much about you. We all just doing this thing together, and I want us to enjoy it whenever I'm here, and I want to help you guys grow and be able to be as great as you can. Because I had that kind of separation with him, it doesn't really affect my relationship with you. I approach it the same way as I'm sure TJ does. Like, even if they mended their relationship and he wanted to come back to the podcast, I'm open to it simply because this is something that you guys started. And I'm never one to close the door on anybody. I don't have any animosity to you. I don't agree with how, he handled the situation on air at the time, but that's no reason for me to have a grudge against him. Whatever y'all relationship is personally, because you have that, if you guys hash that out and you want to come back, I'm more than happy to welcome you with open arms, simply because in the grand scheme of things, we all Black men, we should be able to get rid of the whole ego trip and have a conversation about things and embrace one another for our past transgressions and accept each other for our faults and strengths and weaknesses and all that stuff. Like, I don't have time to hold a personal grudge. If I have a personal grudge against you, I need to separate and call it a day. I don't have to hold on to this grudge and look you in your eye with animosity. I can just distance myself. So if you're going to be here, I'm going to embrace you.
Nice. Yeah. So was it like a a dark skin, light skin Viv like reveal? Like how did DC like transition onto the show? Were your day one fans like, wait a minute? Well, obviously they heard the episode. So They were probably like, what's going on?
Kind of. I mean, like it was I'm not really big on like subtlety. Sometimes I am, but I'm sometimes about as subtle as a shotgun. So it was just like, all right, this is the co-host. Like, I just filmed it, we just recorded it, had the episode. Because it took a minute. I was kind of giving it like cool down time. So the first couple episodes were, he just was filling in. We were just like behind the scenes. I was like, hey, I don't know what the seriousness of this is, but I'm kind of giving it a couple days to whatever. And after we had like you know, the money and stuff towards the studio. Once that was like not reciprocated, I was like, oh, okay, boom. I was like, I'm gonna do that. And then after that, I had a couple messages and it was like, hey, what? And I was like, you know, stuff and things. And I've never been like, you know, super, this is actually the most I've ever talked about it to anybody. I was like, you know, if you guys want to know, I'm like, yeah, exclusive. But I was like, yeah, if I was like, you know, I'm like, I'm big on like the transparency thing. So I was like, if you want to hear what happened, I was like, the episode is up. I was like, I uploaded that day. And you know, and people and some of our mutual friends, I was like, you know, y'all can definitely hear it, because I was like, please tell me, you know, if I'm a super fuck up, if I need to go, you know, and you know, bend the knee or any shit like that. So yeah, it was kind of weird, I guess, to people. They were just like, oh, it's somebody new. And then the more you could kind of check who had listened, they were like, oh, all right, that's the new guy. After a while, it was a couple who kept asking, and I was like, oh, I for you in a little bit. It just, you know, difference of opinions, had a little bit of a falling out, and now here we are.
There we go.
So then after you fell out, you guys didn't, the original guy, you guys didn't talk at all after that, like, period?
We haven't really communicated. We have a lot of mutual friends, so I feel like we're probably aware of the goings-ons and stuff. We just haven't had a conversation. And like, I know it's a lot of like ego and shit wrapped in it. And I think like probably extra sauced hurt, because we've just known each other for a really long time. So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I was like, I don't know how in depth it is, because like for me, it's nothing that is not fixable, but I can't speak for the other side. So we just haven't had the conversation. And I feel like, because I personally, I'm like, I don't really know where I'm super wrong at for the way the situation was handled. So I'm like, I didn't really know how to reach out, because I feel like it's weird to reach out sometimes, be like, hey, you gonna apologize yet? Because I don't really know what I'm sorry for. So I'm not really calling to apologize. And that just how you can start a whole new, you know, confrontation. So I'm like, all right, and I'm kind of big on, you know, the vibe and the universe will do what it does. So eventually, anytime I've ever like in anything, I'm like, okay, if it's supposed to come back, we'll, you know, be open, do everything you can to kind of facilitate a safe space for this to happen. And whenever we're supposed to fix it, we'll fix it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. I know that, like, for me, if I feel like something is off, I'll try to reach out to try to get an understanding, because, you know, you have your view of what happened. You know, I guess on you know, in your situation, you can actually listen to the recording, right? So that actually gives you a little bit of a different view, a different perspective, because you can listen as a listener, like, this sounds like this, you know, but you're still missing their view, right? So sometimes it's just like, I'm not even asking for an apology or trying to apologize right now, because I don't know where I was wrong, but like, help me get an understanding of how you saw it, you know, and then let me share how I saw it. And then hopefully through there, you know, but like you said, you know, if it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. Do you ever regret uploading it? Do you think putting it out? So when you recorded it, did you record it live and then also upload it? Okay, so it was live recorded. So either way, it was out there.
It was out there, yeah. And now it's forever out there. Forever and ever. That's wow.
That you can revisit at any given time.
Yes. Goes back. I'm gonna go back, download it so I can listen to it.
I know, I'm looking for it right now.
On the real, like, okay, listen to that. But that's okay. Well, and that definitely gives perspective on, you know, how men handle like disagreements or, you know, misunderstandings. Because I know as a woman, you definitely get salty about it. And Sherry Renee and I have been in that space, but she's very much like, she wants to get an understanding. And I'm like, I need to stop and I need to see where I went wrong, because clearly I didn't hear something or I just assumed something and I kind of jumped the gun. So then I like reevaluate and then I apologize. So that's definitely, and you know, sometimes even women don't process that way, the way we do either. Sometimes it is like, I'm just not talking to her, like, we're done, we're not friends, like, it's whatever. So that is definitely some good perspective. And I hope, like you said, that if it's meant to be, like, you all will make that amends and come back together and have that conversation, so that you can get a better understanding of both of your perspectives in that moment, like what it was. And maybe right now is not the right time, but in time, that will happen.
I think it depends on the people involved. Like I know you said beforehand, like this is a perspective on how men handle the situation. I disagree with that.
Okay.
Because I don't think that it's a matter of
who's gonna go first on that.
One of us was gonna jump on it, but I don't think it's a matter of male and how we approach certain conversations. I think it's more of a personality thing, and that may be the mental health bias of me looking at it from a thought process or behavioral standpoint. Some people are just more inquisitive to where they want to understand the situation. So provide me context so I understand what I'm feeling and why. And some people are more reactive and emotional to where they're like, this is how I feel right now and nothing else matters. You have examples of that: male, female, gay, straight, lesbian, trans, whatever type of identity that you are attaching to yourself, you have a personality type. You have, like, say, me and TJ could have that situation, and that situation goes differently because we are two people that are willing to have the conversation and understand, like, all right, you're a little pissed off right now. What are you pissed off about? Let's have a conversation about this. Let's solve the problem. Let's figure out how to fix it and let's go. As opposed to in their situation, it's more so like an emotional person with a more, say, rational, for lack of a better term, individual that's going to try to find what's really the problem here. What are you really trying to say, and how should we address it? So it's not a male or female thing. I think it kind of gets labeled as that a lot because a lot of people feel like men, when you think of ego, you think of men. For some reason, we have just created this perception within society that the word ego.
No one has ever said female ego, right? It's always like the male ego.
Right. Yeah, that is fair. Right. Yeah.
It's not a male or female thing. We all have an ego. When you think of psychology or how mental health works, ego is really just something like ego and id and all those things have to do with me as an individual. It has nothing to do with my race, gender, anything like that. Those are all factors that change how we demonstrate our ego or how we can curtail or release our ego. But for some reason, we look at ego as a male thing, as if women don't have egos as well. It just may look differently, but even that's a subjective individual basis. It has nothing to do with your gender or your sex, depending on what you're identifying.
Yes, I agree. And I was actually talking to a woman, I'm not gonna say female, but I was talking to a woman about that yesterday. And she was just talking, because I posted something like, it's okay to make the first move, whatever. And she was just like, yeah, like I can't do that. Like my ego won't let me make the first move. And I'm just like, but guys do it all the time. Like you can do it too. Like it's okay. So that is something that women do have egos, and sometimes they let it get in the way of, things that they want to accomplish or do.
Yeah. We have these trigger words within our society that we automatically deem something to be a part of something else. Like if I were to mention insecurity, automatically you think of something that has to do with female. Like, no, men have insecurities too. If you think of ego, you think of something male. Like we are all human beings. We are all somewhat functional adults in our own capacities, but we all have the ability to do the same thing. Like just as much as, say, a woman's insecurities may be triggered when she's making the initial first step, a man's insecurities and egos are on the line just as much. We may show it differently, or we may have had more experience doing it, but we're just as fragile as women are. It just ends up having a situation where it may look different, and we have to be inclusive with that. Like we have to be understanding that at the very core of things, release those societal ideations of we are this, women are this, men are that. No, approach somebody as an individual. Find out who that individual is. Give that person a safe space to be themselves. You don't know what you struggle through. Like on a personal level, for me, people look at me and assume that I'm gung-ho. When it comes to women, like I'm comfortable talking to any women. I can get all the women that I want. I'm a ladies' man, this, that, and the other. It's like, no. I have always struggled with like image issues and insecurities in that regard, to where I never was comfortable approaching women in certain situations. I'm a better now as an adult, but looking at me, you don't know that. So you don't know how difficult it is for me to approach you and ask you your name or ask you your number, whatever the case is, because you don't know my history. You can look at the presentation now and make an assumption based off that. But we do that a lot. You can see the woman who looks like a quote unquote Instagram model and thinks she has it all together and she's the most confident, and she can be crying herself to sleep at night or drowning her sorrows in liquor or substances because she doesn't feel as secure as we think she does. So sometimes you have to get rid of those labels. I'm a big non-label person. I'm not a fan of labels. Just approach the situation and figure out what it is at its genuine core.
Okay. That was a word. That was a lot of words.
The two young Black therapists.
I know, right? That's so dope.
Podcast.
Yes.
Our last segment is the to-go box. So we have to say what we are taking away. We're going to do a lightning round because we're over time, and Keith ain't going to charge us no extra fees. So
No.
Chanel, what are you taking? What are you taking away?
I'm taking away just the perspective, and I hope that we get to talk to you guys again, whether you all come back on our podcast or while we're out in LA. But it's always refreshing to hear the male perspective or men's perspective on things, and it's really dope that you all are both therapists and doing the work out here as far as like mental health is concerned, because it's much needed. So I was excited about this episode, so I'm glad that we got a chance to do this. So thank y'all.
Awesome. DC, final thoughts to go box?
What I will take away from this episode, honestly, what's radiating in my mind is like the opportunity to be heard. Like you guys are saying, you want to hear the male perspective. To be honest, I know it may sound a little misogynistic, but I don't think the male perspective often gets heard authentically. I think people make assumptions about the male perspective, and they don't always provide us a safe space to feel comfortable enough to say what's really going on and how we really feel in approach situations. So with this being a female or woman-dominated podcast, I appreciate you guys inviting us on to at least be willing to listen to our perspective and hear us. Hopefully the listeners are willing to do the same in their own personal situations. I appreciate being heard.
Absolutely, and we'd love to hear more
Yes.
from you on an array of topics.
I know that's right. I'll definitely slide in y'all emails.
Yep.
Like, hey, what other day y'all got?
Right, because we need to have more conversations where we can just, like you said, we just need to
Be
hear
authentic.
and just learn. Yep.
Right.
Which brings me to Awesome Chad or Chad Awesome. What goes in your to-go box?
Awesome Chad or Chad.
Awesome Chad.
I think I might take the easy layup of just feeling awesome and reaffirmed, because I'm big on we say a lot on the podcast, like besides just your fucking fault is like get comfortable in you don't know. And usually being the podcast is different being a guest. I've never really met y'all at the showcase. We talked online, but I've never like really had a conversation with y'all. So I just was like, I don't really know how the day was gonna go. So I was like excited because I was like, I don't know shit. This is pretty lit. So it kind of reaffirmed my own personal shit of be really comfortable and not knowing what the fuck is going on. Because people get blocked by like, oh, I know how this is gonna go, and you cut out opportunities to learn shit.
Yes. All right.
Yes.
Awesome. What about you, bestie?
I think it's just about, I gotta go back to control what you can control. You know what I mean? And just listening to Chad talk about what happened with the situation. He's just kind of like, if it works out, it works out. And, great. If not, that's okay too. Doesn't make the other person a bad person. I'm not their enemy. Right. But just, hey, maybe it happened for a reason. Maybe it didn't, whatever. But I'm choosing to move forward with the podcast. I'm choosing to move forward with DC. I'm choosing me.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So thanks for tuning in to Brunch with Besties podcast. Until next time.
Peace.